Good morning, everyone. It's Stephen Whiteside here from theuptrend.com with your morning market outlook for Friday, May 15th, 2026. Well, it's a long weekend here, and so the Canadian markets are going to be closed on Monday. U.S. markets will be open. I'm going to do a weekend video on Sunday. I won't do a Monday morning video. We'll be back with charts on Monday night, and I'll be back on Tuesday morning with a pre-market video. Well, things are moving quickly in the pre-market this morning. We do have money going back into crude oil coming out of gold, which is down $114 and change in the pre-market. And it looks like we're unwinding the gains that we saw on Thursday in the pre-market. So look for a lower open on Friday morning. Now, on Fridays, I like to print off some weekly charts just to see how things are going this week as we come into the weekend, and we have the VIX down just under 0.5% on the week. No major change there. As you're all well aware, we're making new higher highs in the U.S. market this week, and we're not being led higher by the NASDAQ, but we are seeing the SOX index continue to move higher, up over 2.5% on the week. Fairly quiet trading in the Canadian market, up a little over 0.5%. We've got crude oil with an inside week up over 7%. Gasoline's also having an inside week up 2.79% on the week. The price of gold is down on the week, so no change there. And then looking at copper, copper's up 5% on the week and heading back up to previous highs from the start of the year. Looking at Bitcoin, I haven't talked about Bitcoin a lot lately. It hasn't been doing much. We're up 1.54% on the week, and we have not taken out the previous week's high just yet. Now, moving back from the weekly charts to daily charts and starting off with the VIX. The VIX for the S&P 500 trading in the channel. So certainly a mathematical possibility of a buy signal on Friday, which would join the NASDAQ VIX already on a buy signal. So you can see options traders have been preparing for some weakness in the NASDAQ. And then the VIX for the Russell, we're in the channel at the moment. So certainly we could see a close above the upper channel line on Friday. Now, I love watching what the market does as big round numbers, and we've been talking about the Dow back up at the 50,000 level or the 500 level on the ETF, and we closed just above that level yesterday. That doesn't break out to a new all-time high, which was made back in February. And of course, we're seeing a pullback in the pre-market down back below the $500 level on the Dow Diamonds ETF. And looking at the SPY and the S&P 500, we're up at 750, got as high as 749.53 yesterday before pulling back. And on the index itself, we did trade above the 7,500 level yesterday and closed just right at it at $7,501.24. And so we're pulling back from that level in the pre-market this morning. Now, 7,500 was also our next weekly target for the S&P 500. Next up, let's take a look at some major index ETFs and some of the stocks in those ETFs, starting off with the iShares for the TSX 60. The pros and the public have been intertwined for the past couple of weeks, and you can see the pros selling off since they peaked in the middle of April. And currently coming into Friday's trading action, we've got the public in control. Now, what worked on Thursday? Anything with the word Brookfield in it were the big winners. Brookfield Asset Management, those were up on the day, followed by CCL Industries, which is back on a buy signal as of Thursday's close. Unlike Manulife, which dropped 2 lines yesterday. So we got stuck up here at 59.69 and then finally broke down yesterday. So if you have any shares left in your Manulife account, then Friday you probably want to liquidate those shares at the open. What else didn't work? Well, Canadian Tire, which has been on a sell signal since the middle of April, continued to move lower, down over 4% on the day. And then we saw a pullback in Barrick, which is still closing above the upper channel line right now. So now with the price of gold dropping sharply on Friday, we need to close below 57.19 to give us a sell signal for Barrick on Friday. Looking at the Vanguard Canada ETF, again, nothing going on here. When we look at the pros and the public, again, coming into Friday's trading action, the public is in control. What worked yesterday? Well, Quebecor was the big winner, up nearly 8% on the day, followed by TFI, which is up 6.69% on the day and back on a buy signal. We also saw Boyd Gaming with an inside day, so no change in trend there. What didn't work, Stantec was the big loser on the day. It was down 6.56% on the day, followed by Lithium Americas, which is down 5.88%, back on a sell signal as of Thursday's close. And then First Majestic pulled back yesterday, still closing above the upper channel line. We may possibly get a sell signal on Friday if the price of gold and silver continue to move lower. We're looking for a close below $28.95 on Friday. Let's finish off this morning's presentation taking a look at some of the major U.S. ETFs, starting off with the Dow Diamonds, and we talked about this ETF earlier. You can see the pros are still in control, but they peaked back in the late April here, so they've been selling off ever since, and coming into Friday, they are technically still in control. What worked yesterday? Well, Cisco was the big winner. It was gapping in the pre-market, ended the day up 13.41%, followed by NVIDIA. NVIDIA had a big day, making a new all-time high. Now, coming into this week, we had a price target of 225. That was the top of our projected trading range. We traded up to that level on the 12th. We traded and sat on it on the 13th. Now, if you want to know where we're going next, if we're going to break through the upper channel line, the upper price target, then you can just take the difference between these two lines and add it, and that'll give you a rough estimate of where our next price target should be. So as we broke through that level on Thursday, we created new price targets to the upside, and 237.50 was the next target. We got as high as 236.54 yesterday, and we are pulling back in the pre-market this morning. What else worked yesterday? Well, Caterpillar was another big winner on the Dow. What didn't work? Boeing had a pullback yesterday, so no change in trend there. 3M still trading below the flypaper channel, no change there. And then Amazon down just a little over 1% on the day, and certainly did not make a new low for this week on Thursday. Now, looking at the NASDAQ's had an incredible run over the last month. Unlike the Dow and the TSX, you can see the pros are certainly firmly in control coming into Friday's trading action. Looking at our weekly chart from last Friday, we were looking for 750 as our next major target for the NASDAQ, which is the same as the S&P 500 ETF. On the daily charts, we've got to get through the 734.38 level to get to 750. What worked yesterday? Well, AppLovin was the big winner. Certainly no major change here, and certainly you don't really notice it on the chart. Take-Two was the next big winner, gapping higher. Closed the day up 6.79%. Then we had Broadcom, and Broadcom was up over 5%. It's reversing some of that in the pre-market this morning. Now, Broadcom, just like the NASDAQ, started to take off at the start of April. Before that, it was incredibly choppy. We had a couple of buy signals that were quickly reversed, and one buy signal, the market really didn't move higher than that, and it slowly faded away. So that was a very choppy period for Broadcom. It was also a period where it was trading from below the flypaper channel, using the flypaper channel as resistance. So we did poke our head above the flypaper channel a couple of times, but didn't break away from it. And then we started to break away from it at the start of April, and that's when the fun started. Back here was all noise, trading from below the flypaper channel, and something you probably want to avoid in the future. Now, we saw some selling in some of the semiconductors yesterday. We had Qualcomm down on the day, and it is looking like we may get a sell signal on Friday with a close below $190.47. That's also true for SanDisk, where we may see a close below $1,298.85. Then we had PDD, nothing going on there, still on a sell signal. It has been trading below the flypaper channel since last November, so nobody's been very interested in this stock. And then last up, our neighbors, Thomson's, made a new low for this move, and of course it's been below the flypaper channel for quite a while, so any new buy signal has limited possibilities, and that's not about to change anytime soon. Okay, folks, that is all for this morning's presentation. So far, it looks like we're going to see some selling at the open on Friday morning. The Canadian markets are closed on Monday. I'm going to do a video on Sunday. I will not do a video on Monday morning. We'll be back with charts on Monday night, and I'll be back with a pre-market video on Tuesday morning. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks for tuning in until the very end of today's stock market timing educational video. If you found the content valuable, don't forget to express your support by hitting the like button, leave a comment, sharing with your friends, and subscribing to our channel for more insightful updates. Remember, in the world of stocks, timing is crucial, and following the trend can be your greatest ally. If you would like more information on how we can help you better time the stock market, please visit theyuptrend.com.